Hello. I understood that people would like some help figuring out all these numbers and what all of this means. Because I get it. This looks quite daunting if you're just getting into the game. Like, why are there 4 batteries? Why is there a splitter? What are these guys? What's this dude doing? Why does he have 4 wires? I'm not sure I'm getting into that, but I will tell you how to wire up motors properly in the best way that I know. I've been playing this game for around 2 years now, so give or take. So I think I know what I'm doing somewhat. Basically, you want to head over. Hold on, I did that too quick. You want to head over to support right here, and then you want to click on quick help. That is the thread in which you can find a lot of useful things. Just quick, helpful things that you can use to make your designs better. But the thing we are looking for right now is the not the motor voltage guide. That is the wrong one. Hold on. We are looking for RR2 motor plus ESC performance. I already had it open. That was my mistake. I like using the motor stats tab. You can take a look at this one and ask around about it. I'm going to explain with the motor stats because I just find it easier to explain using that one. So, we go to motor stats, and as you saw in here, our motor, which is in the back here, we can show that off real quick, is the Amflow 828-400 Quad. Now, this motor says here, 360 volt max, wow, not, God, I wish, 36 volts max, and 250 amps cont, which is continuous. And that's all well and good, but I know, thanks to this beautiful sheet put together by our devs, that the Amflow 828-400 Quad can take way more than that says. So, the way you want to read this, for this specific motor, because it is a multi-motor, that's also why there's several wires going to it, it is, as you can see, 4 motors in one. And you want to read this number divided by 4. So that's 250. If you are trying to figure out what your motor can do at absolute maximum capacity, while being on the safe side of not burning out your internals from just the motors overheating, is continuous amps and overvolt voltage. Your G and P are the most important files for that. So when we take a look at the Quad 828-400, it says stock volts 36, but there is overvolt over here saying that it can reach a maximum of 49 volts. That is quite a performance difference at this level. For continuous amps, it says 1,000, so because it's 4 motors, this actually says 250. Peak amps is helpful, but only if you really know what you're doing and are confident in the fact that you will not burn out your motors. So I always recommend to any beginner, just use continuous amps and overvolt voltage. I still do that too. You can account for a lot of, like, less good motor use. Not even less good. It's like, you want reliability and good performance, just use those two. If you want to go absolutely nuts, you use peak amps, I guess, if you really want to. Not a good idea, though. I have lost many a fight and motor doing that. Anyway, where were we? So, yeah, we have overvolt voltage, 49, and continuous amps, 1,000, which is actually 250. Do not forget to split it through the amount of motors that you have. Back to the game. So, as you can see here, it still says 36 volts, but we now know that it is actually 49. Now, here's a tricky thing that is about real-life physics. Batteries start at more voltage than they say on the tin, so to speak. So these 12S batteries, they say 44.4 volts. But batteries in real life have a minor overcharge at the start of their lifespan. That's runtime, I guess, is the better description. So the 44.4 volts is actually going to be amplified by around 10%, which means that the actual voltage, as we will see here, is going to be 48.84 volts, which is 0.06 volts underneath the maximum that the Amflow A28400 quad can take. So, we really want to use a 44.4 volt motor for this. If the max was, say, I don't know, 36 volts, you would probably want to think, okay, what is going to get close to that if we look at the power here? So, if we take 37, it's already over, so that's not going to work. If we take 33.3 and do that times 1.1, which is 10%, it's 36.63, which is still over. So, if you want to play it perfectly safe, without any risk of, I don't know, motors dying, you can take the 29.6 volts, which will put you at, I didn't do the math on this one, 32.56 volts. Now, that sounds optimal, but here's another trick. Your voltage is going to go down because of the overcharge. I know, this shit is complicated when you're just getting into it. Just listen carefully. I'll take you through it. So, just like I said before, this is going to end up at slightly over the voltage that it can take. But, because this number is so low, that's only 0.63, there is a good chance that you will lose enough voltage from spinning up your weapon or whatever it is, that you will drop below 36 volts before the motor dies. This is complicated stuff, but just give it a try. If the number is this close to correct, you can probably get away with it. So that's worth keeping in mind. But for this case, this is all theoretical. I just wanted to explain this because that's something to keep in the back of your head while you're designing your robots. So that's all well and good. Overvolt voltage we determined 49. The 44.4 is going to give us exactly under, which is ideal. And then you have to start looking at your ESC choices. So the quad is a brushed motor. You will know this by just trying to hook up a brushless ESC to it. It won't take it, I promise. So, for this, you only have choices out of the brushed ESCs. This is where the first sheet can be helpful, because it will only list the ones that are actually compatible. So, for example, you have these, or not even just compatible, the best choices, I guess is the better description. So, for the A28400, if you want to run it as hard as possible, the solenoid is the best choice, but that brings with it a high burn risk. And we want to avoid that. So, the next best choice for the quad A28400 here says the Vex BB. So we will take a look. Actually, no, we will move on to the other two options first to explain why I chose the Vex, because you've already seen it in the wiring. It's already there. So the KDZ is a ESC that goes up quite high in voltage and can put through a decent amount of amps. However, it weighs way too much to make sense in a quad setting. You would need 4 of them, which is roughly 12 kilograms. That's a lot of ESC. Like, look at these things. Oh, actually, they're quite a bit lighter. My bad. So it's 3.8. That would be 7.4, I believe, in total, in just ESCs. So that's not going to work. Which leaves us with the Vex BB. Now, the Vex BB, we can take a look. I will just place one here real quick. So, as you can see here, once you click on an ESC, you will get to see its voltage, which is 48 volts in this case, and the current limit. Now, the current limit, we were talking about amperage earlier. So, continuous amps, this one right here. So, for the quad A28400, we want the continuous amps to be 250 per motor, which is 1,000 in total. Now, if we look at this one, it says it can deliver up to 350 amps. But we want to turn that down to 250 if we want to play it safe. Because that means you are giving it the max amount of amps that is safe for continuous use. And that's it. that's it. You've done it. You have now properly tuned a motor. You are giving it the max amount of voltage it can take. You are giving it the max amount of continuous amps that is safe to run. Then you just got to give it enough battery life. So, do I want to get into that in this video? No, we'll separate that into another one. So, just, if you want more battery, just use one of these. It doesn't even have to be the 6-port. It can be the 2-port. It can be the 12-port. It can be the 4-port. Just make sure that your batteries are going into this thing and then into the components you want them to go to. That's all I'm going to say in this video. So, that is that one sorted out. But then for the drive, well, what are we doing here? So, this is an interesting part. This is also why I chose this robot. Because these motors can only take 36 volts max as well. So we will take a look in the sheet. We will be looking for the NPC T64. That's right here. Hit them up on the continuous amps and overvolt. As we can see, it says 48 volts over there. And 120 continuous amps. So, here is where you're going to have to start thinking about what is theoretically optimal for your setup in terms of weight as well. Because you could run 2 Vex BBs and set them to 120 amps over here for your drive. But that costs a lot of weight for motors that are already really heavy. So what you would prefer to do is run an ESC that is already maxing out while weighing significantly less than a Vex. Here, I'll show you. So the 60 amp is 0.24 kg, and a Vex will set you back more than half a kilo, 0.54 kg right there. I'll take this one off. And additionally, this one, the humble 60 amp, has 2 outputs. So one ESC is taking care of all your driving issues right there. And it's already at the right current limit. It does have a voltage limiter that is quite a bit lower than what it can actually run. But you're saving weight. And that's also worth keeping in mind while you are making these choices. Sometimes you don't need the optimal setup to do good. I'll show you right now. This is not one of my quickest robots, but as you can see, moves around just fine, really doesn't need more drive than this. It is a big honking weapon type robot. It just needs to move the weapon around and then it's good to go, pretty much. So, while you're designing, keep choices like that in mind, because it's important. It's important to remember that you are just trying to get to effectively the lightest setup that gives you the most bang for your buck. That's easy to forget while you're thinking about optimizing your weapons and motors and drive and all that jazz. So, thinking about this, I did not pick the best example robot here, because this one doesn't actually have a gearbox, because the NPCs are, honestly, pretty terrible motors. They spin so slowly that they're never really in danger of burning out, because they already have some built-in gearing. So we will go over to another robot I made, which is Sydney. And Sydney over here actually does need some gearing. So we will move up this bottom plate. Bottom plate? Top plate. I swear I'm a professional. So, in robots, when you have the best setup you can think of, which is not in this robot. Actually, it is. Yes, okay, I lied. So, the cat mode is in this. It says 44.4. It says 44 volts max, but if we go look at the dual cat and the X3330, that is what we are using for the drive, and the lifter, you will see on the continuous amps and overvolt that they can run up to 65 voltage, and the continuous amps can go up to 160 per motor on the dual cat, and up to 80 on the X3330. Now, it's perfect because the Black Tramper, this small guy up here, can put through 60 volts and 150 amps. You're not hitting the benchmarks perfectly, but you are as close as you can in a well-balanced package of weight versus optimization. And then you keep using those for the drive as well, because they just match up really well in stats right here, as you can see. Now, normally, if you were to drive a wheel directly off this motor, it will probably just kill itself instantly, because the motor is not built to be handling the amount of RPM that it can put out. So, just to demonstrate, I'm going to show this off, right? We're going to put this to 1, and this also to 1. And then we will put this to 1 as well, and this to 1 as well. This means the motor is now completely ungeared, which means it will be doing the max amount of drive that it can theoretically do. Now, I probably already burned out the motor. No, not quite. Okay, so, as you can see, the motors are working, but nothing is happening. The temperature is only very slowly going up as well. I am holding forwards, and nothing is happening. Because the motors can simply not handle this kind of punishment, really. As you can see, it's slowly moving. I will put the top plate back on, because that's hampering it a little more than I anticipated. I don't usually ungear my robots. That's a new thing here. So I just flick it around, see if that can get it moving, but nope. Okay, I will flip over the robot now, hopefully. I don't think I have the torque to do it with the actual weapon, so we will flip it like this. Now, pay close attention to the RPM. That is a ridiculous amount of RPM for your wheels. If we flip it over right now, you can see it almost instantly drops down to nothing. So there is no way that the motors can actually apply the theoretical speed to the robots, because you're pressuring the motors way too hard. So what you have to do is use gearboxes and change the values in here. In this robot. Just to explain it, right? So, brushless motors in general have naturally high RPM. So you want to try gearing them too much over too little at first. So, we'll put it to 10 and 0.2. That is a really big reduction, because that means the scale of the first gear will be... I don't even know how to math. It's a really big difference. Take it from me. The bigger this number and the smaller this number, the higher the gear ratio will be. So, we'll drive it around. As you can see, it works perfectly now. Ignore the weapon falling off. But it drives great. Though, it could definitely be slightly speedier. It has plenty of torque. If this looks like comfortable driving to you, then that's also fine. Don't get fooled into people telling you, no, you can definitely run this harder, you should, oh, blah, 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 blah. As this video is doing exactly that, but never mind that. Yeah, you could run it like this, but I was thinking to myself while I was making it, I would like just slightly more speed, so I can chase around the opponent better. It's a control robot, so I need to be able to control and chase better. So I went up slightly on the numbers here, because that will lower, is that the correct word? Lower the gearing to where it will be going quicker now. Like I said, the bigger this number or the smaller this number, the higher the gear ratio is from motor to wheel. As you can see, I didn't pick the right arena for this. And it's also not even a good example because it's bouncy now. So as you can see, it gets quite a bit more top speed now. But I think I actually prefer to what I just had. Or closer to that. I think I will go somewhere in the middle of what I just had. So something close to that. I think 0.27, so we're going down a little bit, making it slightly slower again. I think I will prefer this. Yeah, because now I have good acceleration and also really good top speed. Because remember, you're only fighting in a square that's as big... Like there's no point in achieving a speed record here. It only matters in the size of the arena you're playing in, you know? That kind of thing. Tune your robot to the amount of space that it will have to travel, not to the theoretical speed it can do on, like, a highway. I don't know. People think weird. So yeah, that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to put the top plate back on because I don't need to go back in here. Because I'm happy with it like this. So, something else you have to consider as well is wheel size. Because, in theory, your wheel is just another gear when you think about it. So, if I were to make this part of the wheel, let's say, I don't know. No, we'll make it something ridiculous. We'll make it 5. And make it 5 here. Look at those gigantic wheels going straight through the body. Now, the gear ratio has changed because the wheel is much bigger. As you can see, the performance took a huge dip right here. That is because you are using less of the gearing that you previously had now. I can't even turn. I am trying. I can only turn when I'm doing this motion. That is the only time I am capable of turning. So, if this were your design, you would have to lift the top plate up again, first of all. And gear this probably to just straight back down to 0.1. Like so. I would not be surprised. Okay, it actually does move decently. Not great, but decently. And as you can see, this is usable. You could work this. And this is how you got to think about this. The bigger your wheel, the more gearing you're going to need because your wheel is effectively just another gear in this. Not even in this, just in real life too. This is how it would work. So, trying to think of other things that you will have to consider while designing a robot. You can stack gearboxes. You can also change the gear ratio on chains. So, I could make this one bigger again to get more gearing, which should give me better turning. As you can see, it's pretty good. Maybe slightly too much, because now it wheelies a bunch, which is not good if you're a wedge design. Maybe the previous gearing was better. But that's the kind of thing you can think about now, because you understand the theory, I hope. Oh, wow, look at that. That was actually pretty sick. Hold on. Oh, I think I botched it. Let's see, can we get it back over, man? Hell yeah. Okay. I think that concludes the biggest points that I wanted to address. Because I realize that a lot of people do struggle with this, understandably. It's pretty complicated when you're not, like, an engineer thinking about this type of thing, like, on the daily. So, basically, whenever you are designing a robot, consider the motor choices that you want to make. For example, when I was designing this robot, I specifically wanted to make a small tanky robot that can just tank forever. Like, keep fighting an entire fight with next to no damage to its name. So that's why I went with a very minimal interior setup here, which is just small motors and a relatively big center motor. It's not even that big, really, but just explaining the theory. And I know that none of these motors take a lot of amperage, so I can get away with only having 10 amp hours on board. Amp hours is the amount of battery that you consume during a fight, so to speak. There's another useful image for that in Quick Help again. It's this one. Here's how you do it. Use this image. It is very helpful. Go take a look at Quick Help. It's very helpful. As the name suggests. I hope this rambling was useful to you. If not, just leave a comment and tell me why I did a terrible job at explaining this. Peace.